How's everybody doing tonight? Oh, man. Happy hump day. You know how we do it. Let me get the chat up. I was lazy today. I didn't go live on LinkedIn. I need to make sure I make that happen. You know me, I'm always struggle streaming. So we're going to talk a little bit. You see it up there. NIST 800-39, Managing Information Security Risk. Shout out to my man Before the Billions. I was checking out your Ray study, GRC. Appreciate you for coming. Sorry about that meta interview. Before the Billions. Keep grinding. Your time will come. Your time will come. So we about to get started. Let's see what I got. 6 people. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Get started. For some reason, I want to start at the bottom with this slide, and we're going to use this to kind of jump into risk. Jump into risk. Oh, no, facts. You doing it right, man. Sometimes quick money ain't the best money. So you definitely doing it right. You got a lifetime, man. You got a lifetime. If you got any questions, tech or cybersecurity or GRC, just drop them in the chat. We get to them, pivot to them. Most people know NIST is kind of like my SME subject matter expert. So I was just hitting the rest of the NIST. Once again, this is enterprise stuff. I don't really see enterprise risk done very, very often or very well. Shout out to the team, Study GRC. I'm usually hanging out with these guys. We just did a live on their channel. So we was chopping it up. So they come to support me. So we did a panel on Ticketmaster. So that's what made me start with kind of this slide, right? So this is enterprise risk and some of the questions you answering about risk and why should you get in risk. People know Ticketmaster was hit 500 million records. I did a stream on it. I was going $500 million. 500 million records time $100 is $50 billion, right? So that's what's at risk. So if you're a large company at Ticketmaster, right, that's right. Facts on the MFA. We about to get to there, Dr. Finesse. So let's get to it just at a high level. We're talking about risk, right? Ticketmaster. What's the cause? What could cause this event to happen? Ransomware, right? Ransomware is it. Phishing attacks. Then they're going to call and try to get some money from you or sell your data, right? So the cause is ransomware. What could we do to prevent that? Shout out to Dr. Finesse. He said MFA right there. We could have blocked it. MS Defender right there. Protection. They got phishing attacks, right? MS Defender's got a ton of malware, virus protection. They got a sum of everything. The 2 is App Blocker. What is App Blocker? App Blocker stops you from installing programs on your machine that aren't improved. They're not our approved piece of software API. So if you try to get ransomware, it won't be able to install because it's not improved, right? So once again, what could we done prevent it? Shout out to, once again, Dr. Finesse. Is the number one thing is MFA. If you looked at there, you talked about it, they target people with single authentication. So let's keep going on this. What's the risk event? What would be the consequences be if this event occurred, right? I said, okay, $50 of credit monitoring charge times 50 billion people was maybe $5 billion spent on credit spent on credit monitoring. That would be the bill. What could we do to minimize the damage? I think they had cyber insurance because they said it would not be a material impact, right? So that's kind of us walking through some high-level risk, right? If you're as a company, once again, Ticketmaster, if we got ransomware, how do we prevent it? MFA, Microsoft Defender, and Splunk. Why would Splunk go get in there? Because it's TPT, how they attack, how do they exfiltrate your data. If you go out to MITRE, they have these techniques and procedures of how they steal your data. So your Splunk, which is your SIM, could track that and stop. Oh, that looks like, I think it wasn't Cozy Bear, it was one of those nation states. But once again, they have a style and attack vector. Splunk could figure that out and block it right before they steal your data. Then once again, what will be the consequence? Maybe $5 billion in credit monitoring, right? Then once again, how do you minimize that particular damage? Cyber insurance, right? So that's a high level risk just walking through from Ticketmaster perspective. I don't think they did this ahead of time or what you should do. So let's see. Hey, Chris, speaking, can you DM? Yep, here's the LinkedIn. Facts. This Ticketmaster graph is very interesting. That's cool. So let's get started. Like I said, I put that at the end. I just kind of want to go. So you as a big company, and we're going to get to it. And Chris, we were talking about this. There's a ton of risk vectors. And it took me years. I'm an IT guy, so I really only care about IT risk, but there's a ton of other risks, right, that you can hit before you even get out to IT. And a lot of times, CIOs and CEOs really don't even think about IT until it's a problem, right? So I had a guy give me a compliment that I didn't know was a compliment. I said, "Big boss, why are we not talking about IT? Why are we not talking about GRC?" He said, "PBO and the CISO, y'all got that covered, man. I got bigger things to worry about." What are some of the bigger things he worrying about? Sales and customer service, production and distribution, finance and treasury, human resource, IT risk. And I work a lot. I used to work with a lot of legal and compliance, right? Like we were looking at DPAs, which is data processing agreement. That's a legal contract of what you sign up when you go into a website, right? So those are risks, and we're going to really focus on IT risk and a little legal risk and probably HR, right? Why do we worry about HR? Onboarding, offboarding, background checks. So they work closely with IT, right? If you're going to fire somebody, we might want to lock them out the system first, right? So we're going to touch on that a little bit. So let's see. Good to be here for the fire. Thanks for joining us, Mike Oz. The more the merrier. So risk could do me credit card information, right? Leak. Yep. That would be a risk, right? You got PCI data, but yeah, credit cards are definitely a risk. Stealing credit cards, identity theft. If you get a whole bunch of people like Ticketmaster, you would be open for a class action lawsuit, right? That's IT risk with a little legal risk, right? The IT caused it because it got hacked. Legal risk is we're going to get sued, right? So all that's risk. All right, so we're going to touch on a lot of that. So we get to the top of these slides and we get started. Like I said, I just want to touch on that slide at the end. And so we talked about just put our toe in it and kind of go through what we were talking about. If you're a big company for risk, once again, this is enterprise risk. You see it right there, NIST 800-39. Managing information security risk. Oh, let's see what my man up. Do GRC focus on change management, like writing policy? Oh, most definitely, like writing policies, procedure. If so, how long does it usually take after an audit procedure, the recommendation for them to be implemented? It depends on how many. It depends on the complexity of the company. Usually, it usually doesn't take that long. The part that takes long is some of those got to be signed off by the CEO and the CIO and the CISO. Getting those guys to sit down and read their policies is super hard, right? Because from them, that's paperwork. They're trying to run a company. So getting the guys to sign the policies, but getting those out there. Shout out to Chris. There's CIS has a bunch of templates out there. And now with ChatGPT, you can generate some basic policies and you would just have to tailor them for your company, upgrading Jeff. So it usually doesn't take that long. Once your company has a vision, a policy, a procedure, and a goal of what they want to focus on as a company, what level of security, what classification of data that you're covering, right? Because that's going to tailor your policies. Once again, everybody know I did a lot of IRS work. It's called IRS Pub 1075. Handling IRS data, you got to do certain federal compliance. We just was on a live stream. Shout out to Study GRC talking about HIPAA and hospitals, right? So if you're dealing with HIPAA, that's going to be definitely a different level and a higher level of policies, right? You're going to start talking about presidential memos and OMB, right? You're going to put those in there for reference documents, upgrading. Just but now that getting that, especially once you get started in the rhythm, because once you get your first batch and they get out of it, you really just updating them, changing them, and some of them get withdrawn. So from that part, no, it's just get them in the rhythm. See, son, CEO sign off facts, man. So sometimes do you worry about people leaving their laptop in Ubers as well? Not really. Yusuf, the reason why is now you got remote wipe. Two is we got encryption on the disk. So, and usually we use CAT cards or Uber cards, or even shout out to Dr. Finesse, MFA. So if somebody tries to take a disk out of a laptop, that laptop has a special key. So you can erase the drive, but all the data be gone. So now I really don't worry about people leaving laptops in Ubers. Like again, we got FIPS 140-2 encryption, which BitLocker does. Then once again, you can remote wipe it. Then two is like I said, it's that disk is super encrypted. So only a top-notch nation state could probably unencrypt it yourself. So now I don't worry about losing that. And we're pretty good. People understand not to save stuff on their laptop. Save it in your Office 365 or your VDI desktop in the cloud. So we try to train them for that too. Yep, shout out to BitLocker with that super encryption. But let's get started. Keep dropping them in the chat. Once again, we're going to hit this NIST 839 enterprise risk. I don't see that. I usually see risk for a division. IT, us working with HR, us working. I don't see it talk that at an enterprise level at the C-suite, right? Now you're starting to see a little bit that now with ransomware going up to the board of directors. But so you're starting to see that risk talking about from an IT risk at the board of directors. So that's starting to peak in there because it's just so prominent now. Everybody gets hacked. Everybody's seeing those ransomware. Everybody's seeing those big credit monitoring bills. Everybody's getting those cybersecurity insurance, which is super expensive. So now I think you're starting to see it at the board of directors and kind of trickling down. But that's for large Fortune 500 companies, mid-size, big mid-size companies. I don't see that with, like I said, small to mid. Those big companies are doing it because, once again, their board of directors is forcing them to kind of do that at that level. So let's get rolling. Happy hump day. So we're going to chop this up. This publication places information into a broader organizational context, achieving mission and business source. Ensure senior leaders, executives recognize the importance of managing information security risk and establishing governance structures. Ensure that the organization risk management process being effectively conducted across 3 tiers of the organization: mission, business process, and information system. Foster an organizational climate where information security risk is considered within the context of the design of business and process, overarching enterprise architecture and system development lifecycle. Now that's what I don't see, where you start talking about your business mission, your security, your GRC on top of your enterprise architecture and system development. Those usually are too developed in silos. Why? People starting stuff in the garage like Facebook, they just trying to make money. They're not thinking about risk. They just try to, how many kids can we get this? Because why? Once you get to a certain scale, you get that BC money. Security's in the way, right? But that's a separate conversation. Help individuals with the responsibilities for information system implementation or operation, understanding of how information security risk associated with their system translates into organizational-wide risk that may ultimately affect the business and mission success. All right. And we're going to look at it. Risk is usually done in the stovepipe. We're looking at, and we saw the diagram. We're looking at it from sales. We're looking at it from HR. We're looking at it from IT. We're looking at it from shipping. we don't look at it across the organization to see how does those risks add up and how do you deal with them. Right, that's super duper, and we talked about that in GRC. That's the maturity level of an organization, and most organizations aren't there. Like shout out to Dr. Finesse. Ticketmaster is $1 billion organization. They didn't have MFA on. So how we go from no MFA to talking about enterprise risk, right? So those are two at the ends of the spectrum, right? So that's why I say I don't see enterprise risk. When you got $1 billion company like Ticketmaster, they can't even get MFA, right? So you know they're not going to get enterprise risk, right? So let's keep rolling. Let's see what my man Yusuf said. So really for the first line events in GRC, first line events like Marines presentation reminds me like the Marines, it's up to the company to follow your recommendations. Yeah, but once again, I just give recommendations. The companies can assume the risk, right? So when I first got into security, I always thought, you got to do what I say. I'm giving you these great things. No, they don't have to do anything. They're the executives. They can accept the risk and not do it. And two, let's be realistic. Money's not infinite, and everything in security usually costs money, right? So you got to balance those budgets, especially when you're working for a state or a city. Their budget's small, so a lot of stuff you got to put in next year's budget. So if you get an audit or assessment and they come up with a big ticket item that costs a lot of money, you definitely not going to implement it till next year's budget because you just can't afford it. So that's one thing, and we're going to get into. Part of risk is ranking your risk and doing what mostly you get bang for the buck for your amount of money. You might have a number one risk, but if it's $2 billion and you don't have it, okay, we got to go to 2 and 3. Maybe 5, 7 to 10 I could do for $200,000, right? It's going to lower my risk, but my number one is still the highest, but the 5 through 7 is half of that, right? So that's where you're ranking your enterprise risk so you can figure out, once again, what's the budget? What can you do? What's the uplift and the time to get it done, right? So you got to weigh all those features. I need to get that sound effect. Next to my Corvette. Shout out to the Corvette, getting that money. Straight cash, homie. Facts. Let's see. They're not doing security by design until they hit some level. Oh, facts. 100%. 100%. Hit the like button. I appreciate that. Oh, I believe they said to tailor that one. Facts. I wonder how much Ticketmaster's dropping on IS in terms of, well, we talked about that last time. If you looked at it, their 10K, which is their filing to the SEC, they said it was no material impact. We believe they have cyber insurance for that, Jeff. So it's going to be a pretty penny, but the insurance company going to pick it up. Like, you wreck your car, you just call Allstate. Ain't that the commercial with my man? Yeah, call them Allstate, right? Patrick Mahomes. They call it CyberSecurity to get that, right? They just don't just facts. So let's see here. Are you saying some risks cost a lot? Facts. I've seen budgets where we need to get this Cisco router. It's going to be $250,000. They were like, nah, we're not getting that now, right? Or I need 2 Cisco routers for redundancy. Oh, that's not happening, Hightower. You can cancel Christmas on that, right? So management's got to figure out what those costs is and run it. So yeah, money's not infinite. So let's keep rolling. Assignment of risk management responsibility to senior leadership. That's shout out to we were talking about that PMs, project managers. Who has this risk? And is the Cisco router? Is that IT? Is that HR? We need to do more background checks, or is it cross functions? Right. But there need to be DoD term, an executive sponsor. Why does that need to be executive sponsor? The only people can push something through an organization is the executive. If I'm at the bottom trying to push up from the bottom because I'm a tech guy or GRC guy, if it's not related to their money or a special project or there's no executive sponsor, most of those guys aren't going to listen to me. They got bigger fish to fry. But if it's coming down from the CEO, CIO, or division chiefs on those big companies, they'll do it. Right? Ongoing recognition and understanding by senior leaderships of the information security risk to organization, asset individual and nation rise. This is becoming more prevalent because, a la Ticketmaster, those dollars are getting big and you're getting a black eye when your company ends up on the news from ransomware, right? So I think from the board of directors, they're actually starting to push more cybersecurity. But once again, now we're talking about enterprise risk because you're talking about board of directors. That's even higher than the CEOs and the C-suite. Establish organizational tolerance for risk, communicating the risk throughout the organization. So are you a high appetite, low appetite, medium appetite? What's your appetite for risk, right? If you like Ticketmaster, you didn't do MFA, that cost you what, 5 billion, 400 million? I'm sure it's going to be around $1 billion at least, right? Accountability by senior leaders, executive for their risk management decisions for the implementation of effective organizational-wide risk, right? Who's responsible for it? If you look here, this is kind of how that information flows. Risk management process, we're going to assess, monitor, and respond. That's pretty common. And what we don't see a lot of is information and communication flows. Like we said, from the board of directors to the C-suite to middle management to the guys putting pen to paper to the IT staff to the DBAs to HR. How do we rank risk? How do we calculate risk? How do we make sure risk gets pushed through and stuff gets fixed? Right? And we're gonna dive into a couple of these processes once again, high level, because I just don't see this a lot in the real world when I go work with people, right? So that's why. So shout out, good evening. Yeah, Guillermo. Good evening. Let's see. CFO always shutting down. Facts. So managing risk is really the only time they worry after feds get involved and have no budget like Ticketmaster. I mean, once again, it depends on the maturity level of your company. I think everybody, I always do it in football terms. Most teams barely blocking and tackling, right? You talking about enterprise risk, that's a double flea flicker, man. Most companies are trying to create a product, sell a product, get it pushed out, get stuff fixed, patch your servers, right? Handle Patch Tuesday, and just do your normal IT function. That's the risk of day to day, right? Now worrying about enterprise risk. So, but yeah, so we getting those down. So once again, let's dive a little deeper. Once again, the organization, strategic risk, you'll see this a lot, tactical risk. But strategic is we're planning, we're talking about 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, right? Strategically, what we're going to do. Tactical is what are we doing? What are we patching? What are we building? Like Ticketmaster, we need to be applying MFA ASAP, right? So once again, traceability and transparency from a risk-based decision, organizational-wide. Hopefully you're going top down, organization, mission, and business processes. Goes down to the information system and going back up. Inter-tier and ultra-tier communication, providing loop back and continuous improvement, right? What can we fix for the money and the budget we have this year? And strategically, what are we going to fix 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years? What's our long plan goal? What's our biggest risk? And can we each year start chopping it down? Right? We don't have MFA, right? Maybe we change the password every 60 days, right? To rotate it. Because in Ticketmaster, it says some of those passwords haven't been changed for 2 years, right? So that's kind of a mitigating control. Not as good as MFA, but if you're rotating passwords and forcing people to change it, right? It's harder to take that password. They found them on the internet, then bring them back. The password probably wouldn't be any good because you were forced to change. And two, if you ain't changed their password in 6 months, just lock it and force them to set it up to a new password. So those are some of the things you can do. Hopefully, if they try to set it, they wouldn't be able to change it right because they didn't know it. So they would have to call a help desk, and hopefully the help desk would ask them the proper questions so they would know they wasn't the right person to have it. So once again, some mitigating controls. Let's see. Let's see. So manage risk is the only time. Yep, I just read that one. Patch and pray fast. So patching ain't bad. Praying ain't bad. 90s plus. Not bad. So you patch every day, like putting band-aids until it gets worse. Then no, Patch Tuesday is Microsoft and big company says we know these are vulnerabilities. So patching means that, hey, we know there's a vulnerability, so you need to fix these. They come out like a certain Tuesday every month, so that's why they call them Patch Tuesday. So it's good and bad. Hopefully you wouldn't have so many things to fix, but them fixing them and find those vulnerabilities is a good thing. So shout out to Microsoft. So let's talk about this organization risk management. Once again, mission, business processes, informs the enterprise architecture, then which reference model segment. And we're going to look at one from AWS so you can kind of get a high level view. Then out of the enterprise architecture in our computers, right, what is the security of that? What are the security requirements to that? What are security requirements? PCI for credit cards, HIPAA if you're health and hospital. I'm IRS, so that's IRS Pub 1075. State police and FBI sieges, right? So Marzi's is Social Security Office, SSI type stuff. So those are just different compliances depending on what part of the government you're in, right? A lot of people know I worked at DOD for 20 years. And I worked for the state of, DOD for 11, my bad, in the state of Indiana for 9. So I've dealt with these different compliances. Shout out to Chris. He saw my playlist of compliances, about, I'm going to say 40 hours of compliances I got out there. So, but I just run beta alpha version to implement a great backup. That is incorrect, sir. We better test a little better than that. But shout out to Chris, though. But once again, and I think a lot of people miss this, right? Once again, you're going from business processes to architecture, to security architecture, to information systems, right? So if you find a vulnerability on a database, right, that database is part of a procedure, which is part of an enterprise, that's part of a business function. When you talk about security, you don't talk about information systems, you talk about business functions. Now, business functions have web server, app server, infrastructure, right? So when we say this business function on the enterprise is risky, right, because of federal compliance, PCI vulnerability, IRS vulnerability. When we say that, then that business process has systems underlying it. All right. So you can go top down. A lot of times we go bottom up. We do a compliance scan and we go, this system is vulnerable because X and X. We can't fix it because it'll break the app. Okay. Until we get the app fixed, this is enterprise risk for the whole organization for that business function, right? And once again, we're tap into that. Shout out to 55 hour-ish. You know, I got a compliance playlist, so go check it out. Continuously add on it. This is going to be on the my compliance playlist because this is NIST 839. But let's keep rolling. Once again, keep the questions rolling. Okay, we're going to summarize it. Develop a segment architecture linked to strategic goals. We just saw the diagram. Objects of organization define mission and business function. Associated with mission and business function processes, we saw the flow chart. Identify where risk response is critical elements in success of the business. When we first started, we looked at some stuff from Ticketmaster, high level risk, how we could block it. What's the cost of that was $5 billion, right? Ish. We believe with credit monitoring, we haven't fixed anything. We haven't called Mandiant out at $400 an hour, whatever they charge, right? Define the appropriate architectural level information for security requirements and organization defined segment. Most times, especially when you do a startup, you just building applications. You're not thinking of architecture. How do you get it work? Facebook, Snapchat, all this stuff is done in people's dorm rooms, right? Then they just spun it up. Then they got to a certain level and start making money. Then they start talking about enterprise risk and organization and scaling and these type of functions in there. Incorporating the information security architecture that implements your security requirements. And I got a slide about that. We're going to dig into that in a little bit. Translating information security requirements from segments of architecture to specific security controls and security environments. Allocating management, operational, technical security controls to information system environment operations as defined by security architecture. document risk management decisions at our level of the enterprise architecture. Right. So what are some of those management decisions is what's the cost, what product, Cisco, Palo Alto, there's a ton of things. AWS has their own networking, right? And a lot of times those come at a cost. So that's where your management decisions come at. Are we doing containers? Are we Docker? Are we Kubernetes? Are we Elastic Beanstalk, right? There's just a ton of technologies out there. So what technology can scale to your organization for a decent price? And what technical expertise do you have in your organization? You can pick a whole bunch of stuff, but if you ain't got the people that can handle it, right? So you got to balance those, right? And that's a risk actually, and a security risk, right? So those are risks with HR risk and IT risk. So a high level, that on the my left, right there, you see is the AWS architectural design. We were talking about architects. And on the other side is the PCI requirements that goes with that architecture. You see right there in the purple, pink, and yellow, those are the requirements that are satisfied by that AWS architecture, right? Once again, it's notional. So it's a diagram. And once we say these PCI security requirements are met by this AWS architecture, then those guys can build that architecture and make it come live inside AWS. And once again, those PCI requirements are settled by this particular diagram. Right. So you as a GRC, security architecture, infrastructure architecture, we have to validate these design architectural decisions to make sure their PCI requirements, their IRS requirements, their CGIS requirements. Shout out to Chris Whitlock. These are CMMC requirements, right? So GRC's got to validate this design meets those requirements, right? That's a part of GRC. Of course, those are senior level requirements. That's us working with infrastructure programming, once again, to make sure these requirements, you set up PCI-DSS requirements. I think that's 3.0, the new one, even though it's a 2016 document, right? But those requirements, once again, are met by that AWS design, right? So a lot of times when you review an architecture, internal or external, we might be buying a product that says it's PCI architecture certified. So GRC, we got to review this diagram, or security has to review this diagram to make sure it's satisfying our, once again, our security requirements and our security architecture requirements, right? That's a high level thing. Shout out to the Chris's and Mr. Finesse. We talking about doing some hands-on GRC labs so we can kind of get a feel of what would that look like in real life. What would you look like on a diagram, and what would you check off on, once again, this PCI-DSS spreadsheet? We spreadsheet it to death. But once again, security requirements, validating, checking the box, right? You could be compliant and not secure, and you could be secure and not compliant, right? Hopefully we want both of them, right? So those are multiple checks. Let's see what my man Mike said. Yep. 418. You're correct. This is old, but so what we would need to do, and maybe we do that as a lab. We could get the new PCI-DSS 4.0, do an AWS architecture design like here, and check those boxes off. So that might be a hands-on lab. Once again, Chris said I be volunteering too much. PBO got a lot of stuff on his plate, but he is correct. The new 401's out 2025. So we need to figure out, does our current design, like my man Mike does this current design meet with 4.0? And like me and Chris say, if it doesn't, what is the gap? What is the finding? If it doesn't, can we accept some risk and put it on a poem and schedule it? We're going to fix it in 2025. So we'll be in sync with the 4.0.1 when it comes out, right? You can do that, Matt. Mike, I'm talking, man. I'm talking. I haven't said I'm gonna do it yet, Mike. I'm behind on a lot of lives, but I've been making a lot of promises. But shut out. I do have those skills though, Mike. but yeah. So I think that's something. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to Dr. Finesse. That's something you could put on your resume. That's some lab we could put it in somewhere so you can show where we can have the spreadsheet. On the actual VPC diagram, we could say over here that NAT meets 1.1 requirement. We did the NAT, or I'm sure there's logging. Over there, we got CloudWatch. That's how we meet, column 8, 1.1.2, right? So that's how you meet once again, the notional design with that. Then 2 is we can just take CloudFormation and actually spin up some EC2s, spin up some NAT, spin up some load balancers, right? Spin up a Aurora database and actually make it work, right? So, but once again, shout out to the Chris's. They trying to nail me down, at least get one hands-on lab from out of GRC. But once again, keep going in the chat. As Chris would say, I got a long list. I need to get to work. When you're selecting software, when does risk get discussed? Really at the beginning inside the if you're doing an RFP or a request proposal, or a lot of times, especially at the state, the division would say, we're looking at this software, right? So then you at the security person, I'm going to bring him on. I actually work with the CFO, cool guy. He picked software and he said, these are the software we want us to get. So I need you to review them for security. So what am I reviewing? They was going to have IRS data in there. So instead of PCI, it's some called IRS Pub 1075. Super similar, right? It's the same. They want logging. They want segmented network. They want 3-tier network, right? So those requirements. So when I review them, so it comes in right off the bat, Chris, because I would say this software is cool, but it doesn't have federal encryption. So I don't know if we can get the IRS to sign off on it, Chris. So even at the beginning, those risks start coming in. Once again, though, I've been doing this forever, so I know, okay, the Fed wants a certain type of encryption. It's called FIPS 140-2. Now 3, a lot of companies, especially medium companies, they don't really know what that is, right? The cool thing, though, is they want state business, so I can say, I need this type of encryption. Like we talked about, he said, can we get that in the third quarter? They said, yeah, we'll do it in the third quarter, but you got to pay us an X little amount so we can afford to do it, right? So now, like we talked about, we buy it in the first quarter, so we got a risk of them putting that in the third quarter. But they had encryption, it was AES, it just wasn't a FIPS certified that the government signed off on, Chris. So let me know if that makes sense, Chris Whitlock. I'm kind of rambling a little bit. I'm running out of gas. I walked 3 miles this afternoon. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm running out of gas, but no, let me know, Mike Oz, too, if that makes sense on me doing that. But yeah, obviously, Mike Oz got that PCI requirement, so he knows what that is. So, but you see it there. And 2 is, let's see, Mike, with the line, is this a Sims? Is there a Sims? No, Ron, I'm just talking. I'm rambling because me and Chris Whitlock was talking about a possible lab. So let's keep rolling. But once again, these are the requirements. We saw the enterprise architecture requirements, right? PCI is the requirements that shows us how we need to set this up, right? So as my man Mike Oz said, does this setup here, security architecture, meet those requirements? AWS says, here's our reference architecture. We believe this makes it, right? You're responsible for configuring, but these things you set up, we say it's PCI certified. So us as GRC has to validate that. Most people go, oh, it's AWS, they're good, but now we need to go through and map it and double check it and make sure. And that sounds like my man Mike, that would be his job, right? For I don't know if he's infrastructure, I don't know if he's GRC, I don't know if he's PCI-DSS certified or his role. We can find him a role on here. But once again, these are the security requirements. This is the architecture from an enterprise standpoint, right? Because usually when you do PCI, it's going to take credit cards for your whole organization, right? So this is enterprise risk. If this is done wrong and we get hacked, right, the whole organization gets hacked, right? So that's why we got to make sure those requirements relate to those architecture, that architecture. So let's keep rolling. Once again, risk is across organization. You see it tier 1 organization, tier 2. We saw it showed a different. And 3, right, is information systems. Let's go up. And these are the information systems, right? That looks like EC2s, Windows app, and database app. These are the systems, right? These systems roll up to business function. These business functions, here are the requirements to those business functions. So that's how that rolls. So let's look at a couple of things. So we're effectively addressing the risks associated with growing dependence on external service provider. AWS is an external service provider, right? The cloud is that. With domestic and international public and private sector participation, AWS has data centers around the world, right? Usually in the United States, because it's federal work, we say it has to be on CONUS, which is continental United States property, right? You could be in Hawaii, right? Maybe Puerto Rico. Everything else, you got to be in the United States. Usually, I want everything in the United States, right? On this, So, define the types of service and information to be provided by the organization. Establish the degree and control of influence organizations have on external organizations. Describe how the service and information are to be protected in accordance with the information security requirements. We saw those security requirements. Obtain relevant information from external organizations to determine its trustworthiness and maintain trust. So let's talk about AWS. What is that trust? That is a contract we sign with AWS, right? That they're going to do certain work. AWS has certain certifications that says we've been approved by government to do those certain workloads. We just talked about that. HIPAA, IRS Pub 1075, CJIS for state police and FBI, CMC, MMC for DOD, right? FISMA for DOD. So there's a ton of state ramps so you can run state work loads, right? So there's a ton of compliance. You as a GRC person needs to become familiar with some of those so you can be a SME, right? So you can get paid. So, but that's the trustworthiness is between you validating AWS once again to meet those requirements. And we're going to go look at them again later, but those PCI requirements relating to your infrastructure, relating to your business processes, right? For your organization, which is the enterprise. Appropriately balanced mission and business based on requirements to support information sharing and risk competing with hostile entities. Determine if ongoing risk to your organization, operation, assets, or a nation's result of continuous use of the service. Recognize the decision to establish a trust relationships or expression of acceptable risk. So what does that mean? When I pick Amazon, right, I'm accepting the risk of my work loads running on Amazon. Amazon is a world-class organization with world-class talent and world-class services, right? But you are accepting some risk by putting it on Amazon and running in their data center and not yours. Probably 10 years ago, I would tell you running in your data center was more secure than running in Amazon. Over the last 5 years, I've switched because Amazon has so much technology, so much security, and 2,000 security people. You got 3 dudes in a garage. You're not gonna, even though it's running in a data center, it's not gonna be secure, more secure in your data center than theirs, right? And 2 is Amazon make infinite money, so they have money to cover you if you got hacked, right? If it's coming out, if there's their fault, they got money to cover you with cyber insurance, right? So that's another big issue why you should run it in an AWS workload. So let's see these couple questions. There was a breach with non-FIPS encryption. How would that roll downhill? If it's a government workload and you sign off on non-FIPS, it would roll down. What they would do is when they come and do an assessment, what type of encryption were you running? Were you running AES encryption from a large company like Amazon and it just wasn't validated by the government? If Amazon gave you some encryption from their ASM or their hardware encryption and they got you hacked and you prove, you'd be good upgrading Jeff because Amazon will cover you for that. Right. So, but if you're running some non-FIPS and you got it from two or three dudes in the garage and it wasn't Amazon and you pulled it down, you're responsible and your organization will be responsible. So the first thing is, did you know it? Did you do a risk assessment of it? Do you have risk documentation said you accepted a risk or that you had an exception saying We knew it wasn't FIPS, but here's an exception. And this is the due diligence we did on that encryption, is to say why we said it was good and why we are not negligent. So I think that's just some things are going to come in play. If you're not negligent and you did due diligence and you pick some encryption from a large vendor, hopefully, and I used to work with a lot of attorneys, the attorney's going to say, if you get us hacked, you're responsible. So hopefully you have that documentation saying that. Upgrade, Jeff. Let me know if I answer your question on that. I'm gonna drop the link to it in a little bit, Jeff. If you want to come up and dig a little more deeper in that, we can do that. How can you translate information security risk to organizational risk? If you can give an example. Oh yeah, like we just talked about, from the organizational risk, part of the organizational risk is we don't have the data center to run it. So we're going to put it in Amazon, right? We just start looking at that notional diagram that had all those requirements from PCI. Those are the information security risk, is, can we do all those requirements from PCI, right? So the organizational risk was, we don't have a data center of the infrastructure to run it. So now we're going to put it in Amazon, right? So now we went from our organizational risk, we transferring that to Amazon by putting it up there, right? Signing some documentation. Now we got to configure the security in Amazon, right? So it's shared responsibility. So that's shared responsibility because Amazon's got the data center, got the CAMs. They're validating all encryption, but you're responsible for putting it together. So that's the security risk of us putting it together, right? That rolls up to the organizational risk of just running those workloads. Let me know if that makes sense too. Once again, I'm running out of steam, but we'll keep it rolling. Let me know if that makes sense. Hopefully if I'm pronouncing that right. Let me know if that makes sense. Upgrading Jeff. Keep rolling. Once again, I'm gonna drop the link probably in a little bit so you better come up. Risk framing, that's what we were just doing. Establishing context to provide a common perspective on how organization manage risk. We were talking about what Chris asked. When you start looking at software from a procurement or even buying it or even click doing it on the web at Amazon, you start to look at the risk. Do we have the proper encryption? Is it FIPS? If we don't, that's a risk. What databases we doing? Do they have SSL? Do they have the right compliances? Because each one of their services is either CGIS, FIPS, IRS. Each one of those services have the proper compliance. If it doesn't, then we have to do a self-assessment to make sure we believe it can run those type of loads. Right? Produce a risk management strategy that addresses how organizations attend. And we're going to look at that. Tend to assess the risk, respond to risk, and monitor risk. That's how we're talking about assessing risk. And that's what we're going to do probably next week is NIST 300. NIST 800, I'm sorry. NIST 830 is assessing enterprise risk. Like we talked about, how do you get in procurement? What are you looking at? How are you looking at it? Right. So part of that is, once again, is it encrypted? Is it responsible? Do they have a SOC 2 type 2? What compliances are they saying validating this service work API? What compliances have they already got it approved and already assessed with a 3PO? Is it fair ramp? Is it state ramp? Right? Those documents is attestation saying those services, data center, whatever, can run certain jobs. Right? And that's talking about risk at a high level. Talking about tiers, and we just talked about Tier 1, senior leaderships, consultants, collaboration with risk executives function, define an organizational risk framework. We looked at some of those. We're going to dig into them a little more. How and under what condition risk is assessed to support those risk decisions, and how is risk monitored. Right. So part of that risk, like you said, is it, if it's not FIPS, what's the risk level of that? If it's not FIPS, how do you monitor it? Are you taking those transactional, putting them in Splunk so you can see if somebody's trying to hack them? Are you logging when, somebody try to brute force you 10 times within a minute? How are you monitoring that? What are you doing if you see that? If somebody tries to brute force you, do you got an automated job to say, I see that IP, I'm just going to block it? Right. Of course, they're just going to switch IPs and you just going to block it, right? You're going to play the block IP, but you have something automated in there, right? So the detail, what form and what frequency are you doing that right there? That's SOAR, right? Security operations. right? And orchestration, right? Meaning you have automated jobs. Once again, that shows the maturity level of your enterprise and your organization. Tier 2, we talked about that. Mission, process, business owner apply their understanding to the organizational risk framework to address concerns for specific to the organization mission, additional assumption and constraints. We just kind of talked about that. If we can get FIPS as a business owner, are you going to accept that application? Right? Can I say that's too risky and we need to pick something else? Or that's too risky, we need to spend $100,000 to start using the proper encryption module, right? Or we need to switch a whole new database because we picked two dudes in a garage database. But from a business owner or even a division chief, right? Those are the risks you got to figure out if you're going to assume or not. And that's what we're going to document. Tier 3 is program managers, information system owner, common control providers applies no understanding to the risk management framework. So me as a DBA, right, can I get, or a system admin or infrastructure guy, can I get the proper encryption on this database? Once again, FIPS. If not, right, do I need to upgrade? Do I need to switch? Do I need to switch to another Linux distro, right? That's coming from an information system owner. Then me telling the business owner, hey, this new distro is going to be a certain risk for us to upgrade. It's going to be a certain time, right? Then the business owner got to say, okay, how much money is that and how much time is that? That's coming from an information system owner, program manager, up to the business owner and division chief. Then at a certain level, it's over. I've seen stuff over $1 million. That's going to go up to the C-suite and maybe even your board of directors, right? Depending on the cost of that at the time, or if that's such a critical app of your business. If you're Facebook and that's the Facebook app, right, that's going to roll up to the board of directors because that's your biggest money maker. So that's how that enterprise risk rolls down. We're going to look at those charts from your DBA to your owner to your business owner, right? Or a lot of times they call it business sponsor, up to your C-suite or even, once again, your board of directors. Talking about enterprise risk at that level. Let's keep going. We're going to talk about risk, right? Risk avoidance, risk mitigation, transfer, and acceptance, right? So do you transfer it? We'll talk about what that is. A lot of times that's insurance. Shout out to Ticketmaster. I think they had cyber insurance. So when they got hacked, they just transferred all their risk to their insurance company, right? So we're going to talk about identifying courses of action to respond to risk. You see it right there. Risk acceptance, risk avoidance, risk mitigation, risk sharing, risk transfer, or a combination of those. Course of action is time phase, situation dependent combination of risk response measures. So how do we handle risk and what do we do? All right. Once again, at each one of those levels, or it could roll up to the C-suite or even the board of directors if it's a big enough risk. And I'm sure some of those risks do, right? If you're talking about 500 billion or 50 or $5 billion credit monitoring bill, right? That's going to roll up to the big dogs and see what they're going to do with it. What permissions do the users have to install it? It depends on the organization. Our developers, because they were always installing stuff and they're a little more security savvy, we kind of let them install what they want, because usually they were installing in the sandbox and it wasn't in production. Our regular users, we had ad blockers, so they couldn't install anything. So we got people on the phone or answering stuff, or just regular, you can't install anything. You got ad blocker. If you want to install something, you got to put a ticket in, right? So it depends on the level of users. Once again, our developers, our DBAs, because they were testing stuff, we kind of trust those guys at a certain level of security. Regular users, ad blocker, you can't install anything, right? It's going to check the whitelist. If your program's not on whitelist, you just need to put a ticket in there, right? And two is, these are what it is approved by security and organization. So if you're a regular user, what are you installing? All right. So from our point of view, let's see. Bet. Premiums to go to be higher. Back up for it. Probably. Once again, hopefully that insurance gonna save everybody. The tickets won't go up, but we're gonna see, Mike. We're gonna see. So let's see a couple of these different risk acceptance is the appropriate risk response when identify risk within the organization. Risk tolerance. Organization can accept risk deemed to be low, moderate, or high, depending on a particular situation and conditions. Organization data center residing in the northwest portion of the United States may opt to accept the risk of earthquakes based on a known likelihood of earthquakes and data center vulnerability. Like if you get an earthquake every 5 years, right? You're like, okay. Now, granted, you can accept the risk, but now with AWS, you got Route 53. You can just roll over to a whole nother region. And East, I think, has 6 data centers. They're really 100 miles apart. So, I mean, unless it's like 6 or 7, if it is one data center, it's not going to hit the other ones, right? Then 2 is you can just easily Route 53 roll over from the East Coast, West Coast, roll over to Chicago. So even if you accept that risk, the mitigation is just, do a pilot light means you got small VMs. But if your main data center comes over, once the traffic gets over there, it'll start spinning up VMs for you, spin up a database so you can get to working. Why it's on pilot light, they just charge you a little amount because those VMs are small just to keep them hot so they can start working. Avoidance may be appropriate risk when the identified risk exceeds the organizational risk tolerance. Conducting certain types of activities employs certain information technologies that results in a risk unacceptable. Such situations, risk avoidance should specific action is to eliminate the activities or the technology. Right? So there's just some things we won't run as a company, right? Because there's a lot. What's that content management? It's super popular, but it's always getting hacked. I always tell them we're never running this in our organization. But so there's just certain things we just wouldn't run, right? So. Risk mitigation or risk reduction, the appropriate risk response, the portion of risk that cannot be accepted or avoided. The alternative is to mitigate the risk. Like Ticketmaster, their big thing is to mitigate risk. They could have just did MFA, right? Most people that got hacked from Snowflake was people that had single authentication. So the risk mitigation, and we just saw it and we look at it again, just put up MFA. Then if a hacker got your password, if they don't have your phone or your YubiKey, they wouldn't been able to log in, right? So that would be your mitigation. Your mitigating control would be just install MFA. Risk sharing or risk transfer is appropriate risk response when organizations that hire risk transfer shift the entire risk responsibility. Once again, you see it using insurance to transfer risk. Once again, we think Ticketmaster was paying that big insurance bill, so they want to take advantage of it, right? Do it. Monitoring, we was talking about that earlier. Verify compliance, Nexus scan, and Rapid 7. You want to run vulnerability scanners. If you're CMC, HIPAA, they can run that compliance. And we're going to go back and look at that notional architecture. Once it's set up for PCI, we can set up Rapid 7 or Nexus to scan our baseline and make sure it's compliant. And if anything changed, that scan will say, hey, this is out of whack. We can either have it automatically fix it or send something to the security team so we can go figure out what's going on. Did something break? They had to cut some security features off. What's going on, right? So we definitely want to get it monitored. We just looked at this, right? So when we talk about enterprise risk, we talk about risk in just not IT, right? Just not us, right? There's sales, production, finance, treasury, human resource, legal. If you're Toyota, you got a production line, right? So there's risk, right, across the organization. And you have to talk about it because each one of these could cost money. And the organization from an enterprise has to figure out what they want to fix first. Will we have the money? Is some of it's going to give us legal jeopardy, right? Can we get sued? And a lot of times, some things, it could be our IT systems not set up right. So that's putting our production risk at high because we can't work at a certain velocity or our system not done at a certain patch level. So some in IT at risk could be hurting the finance team, right? They might be doing trading and we can't trade at the velocity we have. So IT as an underpinning could, once again, will and have risk in other areas because, once again, business processes sit on our top of IT, and a lot of those business processes are HR, finance, production, and sales. Once again, they're running on systems that IT controls. So. And that's what it sees right here. Risk of geopolitical developments, risk that the future talent not be attractive, right? HR risk of emerging regulations. So these are just different risks. I'm just so used to talking about IT, and sometimes I used to sit in those meetings, so I used to hear stuff, and I just always think of IT. IT, shout out to my man She, one of the day ones. Thanks for joining me, She. But yeah, so when you talk about enterprise risk from an organization, that's across the whole thing. I know we think IT is the end all be all, but IT is just a cost. If you're Facebook and you're not, taking everybody's data and selling it for $1 billion, right? That's the money maker. Now those systems run on IT, but the money makers selling that to businesses for those ads that I never click on, right? So that's the enterprise risk, right? That's going on. IT is just a piece. We just talked about this: cult leadership and strategic operations, risk identification, risk assessment, risk response, and communication. Right. And that's what risk talks about. Once again, that's a very mature organization. Most companies are just trying to make a product, selling it. They're really not talking about risk at that high level. The risk is if the servers go down and we don't get paid, right? They don't think about it from an enterprise perspective. But those, let's see. And the answers I expected. Cool. WordPress, that's what it is. You're right. I will never WordPress. Just shout out to my man before the billions. I think he ran WordPress. He's a WordPress guru. But yeah, WordPress is just, I always have something going on. That's cool. That's cool. But once again, we're talking about enterprise risk, right? From and just a small part of that is IT risk, right? I live in IT, and I think IT is the end all be all. But once I start sitting in, I call it the big boy meetings, they very rarely talked about IT. So, because IT's just got so mature, they expect the system to run. They expect you to have backups. They expect you to have virus protection and malware. They expect you to roll up to Azure or AWS or Google or Rackspace, and it just runs, right? We pay our money like electricity, and it's never down. So I think that's why you don't see IT a lot. But that's more of an Osier question. This is what I started with, right? Ticketmaster. What could cause an event to happen? We knew it was ransomware. What could we do to prevent it? MFA is the number one, right? Then we can do MS Defender with spear phishing checks, checking where the IP came from. Should we block it? Splunk, logging those type of attacks so we can say, okay, this is Cozy Bear, or I think it was Shiny something was the attacker. This is Shinyware's techniques in Splunk, so we need to block these IP. Or like we just talked about AppLocker. AppLocker won't let you load anything unless it's approved, right? The risk event. What would be the consequences if this occurred? We said 500 million times $100, 50 billion. But okay, instead of $100, we're gonna get it for $10. So that'd be $5 billion credit monitoring bill. What could you do to minimize that damage? By cyber insurance, right? So that's us talking risk like Ticketmaster across the enterprise for each risk event. So you would think ransomware would have came up in their enterprise risk event and them kind of walking through what they need to do to prevent it. And the thing they didn't do was the MFA, right? Maybe they thought they had other compensating controls or more defense in depth, but obviously they didn't, right? Then the thing I think they had was the cyber insurance piece, right? So I'm gonna hang out a little bit. Let's see, get that rolling. See if that shows up. So that's the one, right? So we talk about security architecture. This is the AWS design. And once again, those are the PCI-DSS requirements that goes with that architecture design, right? So you have enterprise requirements, architecture design, architectural security requirements. These are architectural security requirements. Once again, is the credit card requirements, and how do you have that designed so you meet those requirements from a security perspective, right? So I think from that part, and then once again, I've seen a GRC. I've actually had security architect in my title before, so I review these type of architecture for companies. Once again, when I worked at the state of Indiana, did a lot of IRS work. So instead of PCI, it's IRS. So what are their requirements for an architecture to get that signed off on, right? From once again, from an enterprise perspective. Here, let me drop them in. So hang out, put any more questions in there. If you want to come up, we can chit chat it. But yeah, so that's it. Enterprise risk. What does that look like? Like I said, when I usually go, especially medium to small size companies, I don't see a lot of enterprise talk. Currently, I work at a very mature organization, so I get to see that. But in my lifetime, most people are just trying to get some servers up, trying to get some stuff patched, trying to get some backup, trying to do some blocking and tackling, right? I think, on the pyramid of the maturity level of what you're trying to get to. So once again, hanging out. If y'all got any more questions, I think I hit up upgrading Jeff. Let me know if I hit your question earlier. We talked about the non-FIPS. I gave a few examples of that. How would it roll downhill? Shout out. That's when you have to work with legal too to figure out. Once again, AWS, they have some non-FIPS encryption, and they're standing by. When they're HSM, I think that'll be. How you doing, Mike? How you doing tonight, my man? Can you hear me, Mike? Mike, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. You got any more questions? What can I do for you?
Yeah, that's I was just since you put it down at the questions section, so I just said joining. That's all.
Okay, no problem. Glad you joined me tonight. I just want to make sure I was answering answering your question correctly and thoroughly so you can understand. But yeah, I've seen non-FIPS. One of my bosses wasn't a big FIPS fan. He thought it was overkill. So long as we have AES at the 512 mark and he signed off on it, was for a big company, and they took legal responsibility because we were running on Amazon and it was theirs. So and we just wrote it up that we know it's not FIPS. It's an Amazon. It's AES 252. They're backing it. They're running it actually in other government organizations, which I thought was weird. But so no, that's what you would do. You just have to make sure your paperwork was a little tight in case something happened. Let's see what my man said. I will come up, but I think you can. It's up to you. It's up to you, Chris. You always welcome. Restream seem to be blocked by Defender or NordVPN. I wonder. Ooh, that could be. I wonder if that's in there. I thought I'm running the cheap version of Defender. I better not say that too loud. So I wonder. You probably can go on Defender and accept it, upgrading, Jeff. You can probably go in there and just, because if it's blocking it, it's probably seeing it. Thanks for coming up, Mike. So, but yeah, so from a GRC perspective, once again, you see the PCI security architecture. Those are requirements. That's the architecture. So we're talking about enterprise architecture, security architecture, then the requirements for that architecture. That's what it looks like. So a lot of times people ask me, what's the requirement for a Cisco router? I could pull down the PCI requirements from a Cisco router and just give it to them. Here, this is for the credit card industry. It'll work, right? So, or two is I'm usually a IRS person. So if it's moderate data, I send them the IRS. They call them schisms, hardening. These are the checks. Here's the GPO hardening for your Windows server. Here they go. So a lot of times people ask me, well, how do you know what to harden and what is the requirements? Are you running PCI? Or are you running HIPAA? Are you running DoD FISMA? Are you running STIGs? Right. So there's a lot of hardening compliance once again, which is the requirements for your architecture. So from a GRC perspective, that's what it would look like. I thought it was too upgrading, Jeff. I had to go check that out. Actually, I'm running 10. I bought a cheap PC, so I don't think I can go to 11. So I think I'm going to move all my YouTube stuff to a laptop. I'm about to upgrade to a laptop that's 11. Because I think 10 is going to probably by end of next year, it's probably going to be de-supported. I need to go see when it's going to be de-supported. So I need to get moved over. I was being cheap. So I need to get that handled. Once again, I appreciate that, Chris. Once again, I don't see enterprise done a lot. Oh, that's cool. Before the bills, I think I'm gonna do one for you. I'm gonna do a data lake coming off a S3 bucket, and what's the security look like that coming from S3 bucket, which is filed. They can actually run a select statement and populate a database, which is Redshift, and do an operational data store to a star schema into a warehouse. What does that pipe look like? What does that pipeline look like from a security perspective? But no problem before the billions. I hold tight. So yeah, so my man is a retirement date. Okay, okay, I got a little time. I appreciate that upgrade, Jeff. I thought it was into 2025. That's October. That gives me a while. For Christmas next year, I'm gonna give me I probably give me a big workstation, right? I can run all my stuff on. I can give me a boom mic upgrade. Give me a soundboard so I can upgrade some stuff. Yeah, shout out to my man, big time data engineer. Open to work, go check him out. I'm always trying to like it and share his stuff on LinkedIn, doing great things. So the number one principle that most PCI professionals work toward is how they avoid storing. Storing core data. And there are very few ways not to store it. The one I heard of was token. Yep, I heard tokenization. The thing I used to argue with them is they want to store the data to make it easier to reorder it. Because on Amazon says, right, you one click and you can buy stuff. I want you to put in the 3 thing. I want you to put all your data on it because I don't want to store it. But what do they call it? Customization and ease of use, Mike. I used to get in an argument all the time. Your ease of use is costing me security, right? Security, my job is to make it just easy enough for you to do your work. I'm not supposed to make it super easier, but they trying to get more customers, Mike. So that's the balance with it. But yeah, tokenization, I heard that before. I don't even want to do tokenization. Because I figure out if you do tokenization, MD5 or SHA, I feel like they can figure out how to reverse it. So, because if you token it, you got to match your token it up with your CVV card, something to make it match so you know what it is. So, I'm not sold on tokenization, to be honest. If I'm doing tokenization, I just do FIPS encryption. So I trust that just as much as I trust tokenization. So I don't know about that, Mike. I've heard that. Once again, I'd rather just not store it. You just put all your information in every time. Once I get your approval code back, I save it. I'm done. I'm deleting it. Right. Once it's approved, I know it's good. Right. Then if I got that number, I could go to the credit cards. They're saving all the transaction data. I don't have to save it. But once again, ease of use, I always got overruled on that, Mike. So shout out to the business. They said security will not stand in the way of our ease of use of us acquiring customers. So that was a big issue for us, Mike. So so a lot of people think security wins, security gets overruled a lot. But once again, like we looked at, the business is accepting that risk now of us holding that data. Right? Because I'm gonna send an email. PBO told you not to save the data. So if we get hacked and it's stolen, the business wanted to keep it. It wasn't PBO, right? So I want that in documentation, right? But yeah, I see that a lot in different quarters and in different ways than that. Let's see. Is there anything else I want to hit? While I wait for my man to come up. Yeah, let's hit that Ticketmaster again at the bottom. Talking about risk at a high level, right? So that's risk once again, though. That's stovepipe. You're looking at each individual risk. Shout out to my man before the billions.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep. You're crystal clear, man. You got the big boy mic, man. I need to get up to your level, man. I'm still struggle streaming.
Appreciate you having me up here, TBO.
Yeah, we need to do a joint, man. We need to do pipeline security from a data engineering standpoint, man. So we need to.
It sounds good to me.
Need to collab on that. But yeah, just talking about enterprise risk, I just don't see this a lot in most organizations. Most people talking about it from a stovepipe or strictly from an IT perspective, right? Mm-hmm. When I got to set in big boy meetings, they talk about this business function that has IT resources underneath. They don't say the SQL Server database. They don't say the Oracle database. Even if the SQL Server got a vulnerability, they say this IRS process has a risk because of the SQL Server vulnerability, right? They talk about it in business function because that's an enterprise conversation, not an IT conversation. So once again, I think that's the maturity level of an organization. And like I said, most big companies I've seen was doing that was Fortune 500 level. Most small companies are saying, can we get this product out? Can we get this pipeline finished, right? Or what's stopping the process of the pipeline? They don't really talk about it as an enterprise issue. They talk about it as an IT risk or a sales risk or a legal risk.
Right. Yeah, because just like how you said, the maturation of an organization, you have like startups, they don't care about security whatsoever. Yeah. I'm not gonna say all, of course, but the general rules of thumb when you were talking about startups, they're trying to build something to get acquired.
Yeah. And two is security usually slows you down. Let's be real. The more things you check in or tokenize, or if I make you start using the YubiKey or something, they'd be like, that's slowing us down. They trying to get velocity so they can sell it to Mark Zuckerberg for 500 million, right? Are you trying to get to 10 million subscribers or 10 million users so you can sell and get some more VC funding?
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's hard to get that funding too. I mean, I've applied for funding before for my business, but then also I have spoken with other VCs and people in the Atlanta area, and when they're talking about trying to give that funding out, they want you to have some revenue coming in. And then the applications are pretty extensive that you have to fill out for as well. So you one of the things that I listened to a speech from a VC yesterday. Not yesterday, it was last week. And they were talking about how you don't actually need to have technology in order to sell a company. What you need is things set up like a sales process for you to sell the company. So like a VC will be able to buy into an idea without you actually having to have a product. And they gave a whole bunch of different examples of people. One of the biggest examples is like people who set up newsletters like Morning Brew and all these other companies. They set up a newsletter. They got a whole bunch of people who are like a community, and then they were able to expand their business. But when we were talking about like security, I think that for large organizations, this should be one of their top priorities because I remember you saying that Ticketmaster had to pay, was it $50 billion or something like that?
Yeah, I kind of retracted because somebody did a good point. I said $100 credit monitoring, but he said, well, PBL, if I get 50, it was 500 million, when I get a discount, okay, let's take a whole zero. Instead of paying 100, I give you 10. That's still $5 billion if I get $10. Yeah, so that's $5 billion. Two, let's be real, we ain't fixed anything. I need to call Gabe. I got to get some people to patch it, find it. I got to get mandate out. That's just credit monitoring. I ain't fixed jack yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yep, that's true because a lot of the companies, they see us as numbers, but it's not just like the employees, right? They see the employees as numbers, but not just as numbers like, oh, I'm employee number one. They look at you on like their profit and loss sheet, and they say, "Oh, well, I'm actually making a loss by having like their salary that I had to pay for," and you also take a loss because we're the biggest vulnerability to an organization. They're like the biggest asset, but also one of the biggest liabilities. Um, that we may open up the organization to more risk by clicking on a link, or taking a phone call from the wrong person, giving out
Oh, wow.
information. There's so many different things that employees open up these large organizations to. And probably Ticketmaster, I don't know, did they explain why Ticketmaster was hacked?
Yeah, it was they had a product called Snowflake.
Oh yeah.
And what happened was is Snowflake said it's called password stuffing. People stole passwords and username from other organizations, and
Mm,
a couple of them didn't change the password. So since they had single authentication, Ticketmaster had single authentication, so they took passwords they stole and they just tried them in Snowflake, and some of them worked. So Snowflake snitched on him. He said, Snowflake said, most of the people attacked on here only had single factor authentication, saying it wasn't our fault. So no, so that's what it looks like. And it
mm,
wasn't just Ticketmaster. I think it was 160 other organizations that was on Snowflake. So
yeah.
that was the attack vector.
And that also goes back to the people,
Yeah.
right? Like the employees. I mean, even though it wasn't social engineering, but it was using the weak password.
Yeah. But two is I blame a lot on Ticketmaster because how you build your organization? You ain't doing MFA before
Right. You
the
got
either. Yeah, so you what and two is the other compensated control. I did a stream on this. At least make them change their password every 90 days. If you ain't got MFA, at least force them to change their password. If they would have done any of those two, I don't think they would have got hacked. So I think they were negligent. So I think they're going to be a class action lawsuits because that's negligence to me without those two basic things. Let me answer this quick question before the billions. Now you're right. Person centered cyber. Everybody go check her out. One of the best policy writers on the planet. PBO be struggling. His policies be kind of dry. So I need Miss Person Center Cyber to help PBO. PBO can generate them off of Chat GBT. He can make them relevant, but they're not good. I mean, I think that's a skill and art to make a policy seem to you be relevant and people actually enjoy reading it. When mine look like a template, so it's kind of dry. So you got to give a love to processes and procedures. She's definitely on top of that. So, and two, like you said in the other one, she's correct. That was a silo. So this diagram right here shows it across risk across your organization, right? Different business processes over your enterprise architecture, over your information architecture, and once your security. She's correct. That one showed IT is a silo. IT is across every organization because everybody's running a system or a business function that sits on top of IT. Let me this particular one. I would consider brute force attack like alpha version of social engineering. All facts. It's been around, like you said. We should, I'm old school, so still 5 tries, your account's locking it. You need to call a help desk. Maybe I
it.
would call it passive. Let's see what Ron said. I would have to agree. Most other sites, labs, even without, yep. Let's see what Jim R. Shout out to Jim R. I've signed up or notifications on how can I get more lead time on your live stream. I don't, I need to figure that out, Jim. Because if you're signed up, you should get them. But sometimes, and we talked about that, they don't know everybody on the stream. I think if you keep coming, I think YouTube figures out who comes, but that's a problem. I think I'm in Simply Cyber's Discord. I'm in Before the Billions Discord. So some of those I think I'm gonna start just posting in Discords when I'm gonna go live. So let me know what Discords you and Jim are. I'll start posting them in some just different Discord. Go ahead, Before the Billions.
Yeah, definitely. I think that but also about that part about YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
I had to go out my way to like, oh, okay, let me check out your channel and then click on, oh, you have a live stream coming up. I saw your live stream was playing on LinkedIn and I clicked on the link to get a notification for your live stream. Just even I don't always receive it, even though I'm watching you all the time.
Yeah, that's weird. So yeah, I might start posting them in your Discord, because I know I peek in your Discord. I always came not quite. You be like, I'm in Discord. I'm like, I'm 2 hours late. So we need to sync up, because I know you do chats and live stuff in your Discord. So I definitely want to support you.
Right, and I'm planning on doing a more scheduled type of, yeah. So
that's what I need to do. Shout out to Chris Whitlock. They like, pick a time, man. I'm like, dude, I'm either Tuesday at 9:30 or Wednesday at 9:30. Like I said, I need to pick a time and stay on that time. I have one, but I'm all over the place now.
Right. But so back to the multi-factor authentication, people getting hacked. I think that at my previous organization, what we had to do was when we logged into our computer, we had to log into the computer, then log in again into the computer, right? So you had to log in through like they had some sort of software. It wasn't Zscaler, but something like Zscaler, right? So they had something like Zscaler that you had to sign into first, which is a different password from your actual laptop password, which you have to change every 90 days.
Yeah.
And then when you log in again, you have to log in again to use Google Chrome. And when you use Google Chrome, now you have to pull out your phone and then click on the button to authenticate again in order for you to even use your web access. So they had all those levels. And also, if you were to say the wrong password too many times, then you would get locked out and have to call the administrator. Same thing for if you wanted to do your time. So you say, oh yeah, I need to do my time for the week. They had us, and it was like a very old school interface, right? Like they needed to update it because it had some issues, with some of the forms. But essentially how it would work is we would have to sign in, go through all those steps, right, just to get access to the internet. Then we would have to go and do a single sign-on for our timesheets. Then after we do the single sign-on, you have to authenticate again with your phone number. So it's not like a push notification with Google Chrome. It's like you have to either get a text message or an email from your email. So you had to already be logged in to your email as well, which you had to log in every single day. So every single day, or not even every single day, it's like every 12 hours or something like that, you would have to log back in to your email. So they had things pretty locked down.
Yeah.
You would have to actually kind of go out your way to get some information. Like somebody would have to like willingly give it to you. You wouldn't run into a situation like this with Ticketmaster, at least not as easily, because you need so many different passwords and so many devices connected.
I think a lot of people are like you said, is multi-factor.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing I'm realizing as well is that having the MFA, even for like I use Google Authenticator, that makes it easier using like the QR code. To me, it seemed like an easier way of doing it, because if I always have my phone on me, then I could just okay, the number changed, and then you can just type in the number.
Yeah.
And you can even access it through your computer as well. Your MFA. So,
and I think to me, that's what makes Ticketmaster seems negligent, because it seems like every company has some form of MFA. Like I do AWS Labs, and I've got Duo set up, because if you got 10 and under, you get Duo for free. So I even on when I lab, I got my my little Duo set up. My authenticator comes up. I click on it, and so I can get in. When I be working at admin or DBA on AWS, just me labbing, playing around. So how does $1 billion company not have MFA set up? That's that's once again negligent. They're gonna get sued over that. So
one other thing that they did not do is like least privileges. Just because like you go and you use a password, that password shouldn't be connected to something that could actually change anything unless you go for somebody who has like a DBA access.
Yeah,
Right.
privilege account. Like I get a privilege account. DBA sysadmin, data engineer. So he just happened to get somebody like so. I did that on my Ticketmaster thing, and I said that too because they got roles that you can set up inside a Snowflake, and I don't think they had any of those set up. I just think they put everybody at admin. That's what it seemed like, just kind of listening to it and how easily it happened. So you didn't have MFA and you didn't have your least privileged job function and job role set up. So
right. Another thing is for PCs, they won't even allow you to download software yourself. You had to reach out to health, and it would then that was a pain in the ass. That it is downloading software. You had to go and reach out to your manager. Your manager had to put in a ticket, and then the ticket has to be accepted, and then they had to have a reason for you to download the software. And then they go and they had to log into your computer to put in their password to download it.
Yeah, they're pushing. We did that, but like your level data processing, because those guys was always testing stuff. We trusted them, at a certain level. So we're like, okay, this role and this level can download. So, and the other people we were using AppLocker, right? So AppLocker is whitelisted. So if you were just a regular, help desk, a regular person, but developers, DBAs, data engineer, we just was like, okay, we trust you to do it. So you need to vet, don't, these are the things in parameters, you need to, stand and go by. So,
right. But yeah. And all of that. And then I think PBO, you brought up a great point is not all data is made the same.
Facts.
Because some data is more expensive than others. I've worked in fintech companies, I've worked in e-commerce, and I've worked in human resources so far in my career. And all those different industries, finance is high up there, but also healthcare is high up there as well. And how expensive the data is if they are negligent.
Facts. Because banks, they got GLIBA, which there's a ton of banking regulations that they have a lot of security requirements on there. So I think that's it. Real quick, let me answer Mike. I'm saying Mike asked, do you think Snowflake would take some responsibilities on a one-factor system in the cloud? I don't think they did because I looked up their documentation. One of their pages, it's like the second or third page says, we do not recommend you to do single factors, so you should do it. So Mike Oz in the shared responsibility, they gave them the tools for them to configure it. So it's Ticketmaster's responsibility to configure it. So I don't think they should take any responsibility because Ticketmaster configured Snowflake, so they have the responsibility. Now, I think Congress might come out and give them a ton of, because AWS got a little backlash for that. They said out-of-the-box control should be a little tighter. AWS is like, damn, billion-dollar company. They're responsible. We gave you the tools, but I don't think, if it is, it's going to be super small, Mike. Now, Ticketmaster is a billion-dollar Fortune 500 company. They're responsible for the security configuration, especially in the shared responsibility. That's definitely in their bucket. Go ahead, before the billions, if you want to chime in on that. Shout out to Game Over.
And I just like how you said, PBL, I don't think that Snowflake is going to take any responsibility for this. I mean, they already gave their response and said, hey, look, you went against what we recommended by having single factor authentication. I just explained the whole workflow of how my old company did everything, and even though it was such a pain in the butt, it definitely was something that protected the company. So I completely understand it. And one other thing I wanted to bring up is I've been to many I've seen Snowflake all the time. I go to a lot of events and conferences. I've been to like Data for Breakfast for Snowflake. They have so many different vendors
Mhm.
and people who are they're trying to ramp up and get more people to using Snowflake, to where they completely created their own, like it used to like just be one tool, but now it's like a whole cloud
Yeah.
platform that you can use.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Right. And the thing about it is that and also I kind of want to ask this question too, PBO.
Yeah.
There's so many different vendors who are using Snowflake or have
Mhm.
products for Snowflake. Do you think that opens them up for more risk by having more third-party companies coming in and adding more products to Snowflake?
Actually, I think it's the opposite. The reason why is
Mhm.
they're big vendors, so those big vendors buying security. So I think a lot of times they help. Snowflake's not small, but I don't think it's they're mature as those big companies. So they have their security guys look at it and be like, "Hey, we need you to add this feature or this feature, or if not, we could create something to put on top of Snowflake to actually be able to handle it." So I think those big vendors is actually helping Snowflake. Because too, as I looked at Snowflake, they were PCI approved and they had the CIS benchmark checks,
Mhm.
meaning the benchmark checks told them they had to have MFA on it. So that really made them approve. Let's see if I can bring that
Okay.
up. So yeah, we were looking, like I said, I did a video on it. So I was surprised when I saw that benchmark come up. I was like, oh shit, I was like, they got the benchmarks. So
Mhm.
that even that even solidified to me that snowflakes were really negligent. I'll pull those up. Are we talking about?
Right. So, PBO, one other question I have
Mhm.
is, how do you feel about organizations selling this data or selling different data to other organizations, like Equifax, for an example?
Equifax, I'm against it because you have no control over it, right? Equifax, if you're doing business or company, you trying to get money. So people always said, like Facebook says, I'm selling your data because you're not paying me any money for this service. You got a billion pictures up here. Actually you can use it for authentication, authorization to other apps. So at Facebook, I'm giving you all this technology. And two is I don't have to be on Facebook, right? So for me, that's too. If you're Facebook and you're saying, hey, you paying me with your privacy. People don't realize that you paying me with your privacy to use this app. I'm cool with it because you can opt out. You don't have to be on Facebook. Equifax, a lot of times people don't even know I got a bank loan. I'm in Equifax. They selling my information on my bank loan without me telling me. So I separate those two before the billion. So,
Mm.
um, um, like I said, Facebook tells you. And two is, and I always ask people, why you mad? You didn't pay for them. You ain't gave Facebook a dime. And I don't know how Facebook make money because I never bought anything from a Facebook ad or Facebook marketplace. But they a $1 billion company, so I don't know how they making money.
That one of the things I was talking to I was going to the Technologies of Color, the organization I'm work with, as far as you know networking events and meeting new people. One of the things that we were talking about is how Meta has to create these new products in order for them to make more money. Because at that time, it was early. I think wasn't it like earlier this year their stock price tanked,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
really really low, and we were trying to see like, okay, how is Facebook going to make more money? I mean, everybody in the world has a Facebook account, or not, of course not every single person. The only people who don't already have a Facebook account are people too young to have a Facebook account, or people who doesn't like Facebook and doesn't want to,
Well,
or maybe
I
uh,
think third world countries are struggling. That's why they're doing a lot of third world push. They actually setting up networks in third world countries so they could use Facebook. And people don't realize this, and they don't do it much anymore. Facebook, you can actually move money between people on Facebook, right?
yes,
Like what a lot of people don't realize that's big in over third world countries, so they can do micropayments.
yeah, they have something called MetaPay.
Yeah. But that's big overseas. But go ahead. But yeah, so I think that's one of the services that a lot of people are not. And two, a lot of people you can set up for your business, so you can use your Facebook username and password, right, with SAML or OpenID, and you can authenticate Facebook and let them go into your app. So I think they're trying to become the password for the whole internet.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think that's going to become an issue, especially with situations like how we saw with Ticketmaster, with all those different, like that's literally the same thing. You have a password to one. If somebody catches your Facebook password, you use Facebook to sign in. Same thing with your Google password. You authenticate with all these different apps. All they would have to do is get access to your Google and then say sign in with Google.
But as a data engineer, a lot of stuff's not easy to set up. I think you take it for granted because you got those skills. So you used to authentication, authorization, password, where you gonna pull it. A lot of small companies don't know jack about that before the bit. So it's just easy to use it. So I think they're trying to get in front of that.
Yeah, one of the things that I was talking to one of my mentors about, we were talking about how it's kind of similar. It's kind of similar on this type of topic, but it's talking about like when you say the small business owners, they may not know how to do all these technical things, and we were talking about in the sense of boot camps and people learning these technical topics and stuff like that. Really what we were saying is, okay, you have people who are already on their way, and you have people who don't even know how to really use a computer that well.
Thanks.
And you're supposed to get both of these types of people to be able to pass a boot camp within a season, right? You get 16 weeks, 4 months, a season, because that's the length of time that somebody's attention span could last for, like that's like the maximum that you can just keep somebody on task. But that's really just a semester in college.
Right.
So you have these small business owners getting access to, there are some small business owners with access to large amounts of data, terabytes of data,
Oh yeah.
and this very valuable information. And they're setting up their infrastructures in, just like I was saying, the wrong way, or they're not worried about security in that same way. So there's going to be a lot of small business owners and other small companies getting taken advantage of by more tools such as like AI that's coming out, such as these passwords and people not having multi-factor authentication. So, but what do you think about that, PBO?
No, I think you're 100% right. That's why sometimes it's not a scam, but you set people up to failure with boot camps and the time frame, depending on what's your background, what's your skill set. A lot of times your age. I think a lot of older people are trying to pivot into IT and they're just not gonna make it, man. The time frame is just brutal. And now with you've seen it, the competitions out there is just fierce because so many people getting laid off. So I agree with you 100%. Hold on real quick.
Yes.
If you look at 1.4, these are the checks for Snowflake. It tells you right there, ensure multi-factor authentication is turned on for all human users with password-based authentication. This right here is the CIS, which is basic checks most companies should be using. And they got Snowflake just came out 10/27/2023. Ticketmaster as a $1 billion organization should have known that and be at least doing these basic checks. And it doesn't seem like they were doing the basic checks. And the other one was on in there was Snowflake. Make sure you coming from a particular set of IPs, meaning if you're in AWS, make them go through AWS and only coming through AWS that you connect to Snowflake. So if you're trying to come remotely from another location, they should have been blocking that. So there's a lot of security features and defense in depth that's built in the Snowflake that they just didn't cut on.
Right. Or maybe the use of service accounts could help you with a lot of these things. Like
100%.
you say, human-based people have a service account. Go ahead and instead of you logging into the virtual machine, have the service account log into the virtual machine. Then you do an automated process through that.
No, 100%, 100%. I was just thinking ordering tickets, seems to be would be a user-based authentication. So, and it sounded like they stole the password, so it was a human. Seemed like it was a human logging on for a base process. But now you're 100% right, especially from a developer or automated job, like you said, set up as a server account. And Windows get those managed service accounts. They automatically change the password behind the scenes and set that up. Let me read a couple of these questions real quick before the video. RRR, I'm going to actually do a video on Glibba from a security setup for banks. I'm going to do Glibba, FINRA, which is financial credit reporting. So I think I'm going to do 3 all together. One of my past jobs, we used to do a lot of financial work. So I think it deserves its own video, double R on that. Let's see. So basically, Snowflake did what they're supposed to do, man. I'm blaming Ticketmaster. But depending on the card holder data was exposed, card brands are going to come for their millions. Oh, no, I agree with that. They come with the class action lawsuit, Mike, on them. He said, I just checked it. Seems Snowflake. Yeah, oh, yeah. They run on a couple cloud service providers. But, yeah, AWS was number one. The other thing I didn't like upgrading, Jeff, is if you go to YouTube, Ticketmaster was showing their whole architecture on YouTube because they're AWS preferred vendor. So they were doing these joint conferences, keynote speeches, which is cool. But now I know your whole architecture because you talking about it in the keynote, Jeff. So I was real big with my boss is don't be talking about our architecture up in public, man. If we got SQL Server says Oracle or MySQL, don't give people the information they need to hack you. So I thought that was really, I didn't like that upgrading, Jeff. But yeah, if you Google it, it's a ton of stuff where they were actually talking about their architecture. Oh, great. I'm Gen X and I've seriously reached Snowflake. So let's see. By PBO ribbon. So I'm straight vodka, but we can talk about that. If Facebook make money, facts. But who's buying it? I've never bought anything off of Facebook, so I don't know who the advertisers are. But they print money. You right. Facebook prints a ton of money. Been printing for like 15 years. So no, I agree. I just don't know who's buying it. Shout out to Keep It Techie, one of the originals. Let me know if you want to come up, Keep It Techie. I know you're a busy man. I'll drop the link. Shout out to Keep It Tech. He gave me my first interview on YouTube. So definitely shout out to him. Got your boy out there. Let's see. I'm behind. Did I lose it? Oh, yeah. There it is. Let me get caught. I had a few questions. I saw Snowflake seriously lately saying that he was tight minimum security. Oh, yeah, I know that's coming, R-Square. He got to cover his. So they probably going to force you to do MFA. So, yeah, he doing what he's supposed to do, but I think they're good. But of course, CEO got to say that. Facebook Messenger, what app is the main source generate? We don't pay for any of that though. Facts, they make a ton of money, like you said, 1.3, but we don't pay for any of that though. Upgrading, Jeff, like you said, by advertisers. So my thing is, they give you a service for free, so you paying with your privacy. I agree with you. Shout out to Messenger. WhatsApp is getting all that security put in Messenger. Now you see end-to-end encryption inside your Messenger, so nobody can steal, if you're doing anything wrong. So True took an African tour. Oh, yeah. They trying to get them micro payments going on over there. So basically collect our data and rinse it. Yep.
Hey,
shout out. Go ahead.
Can I make one more point as well, too?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Facebook.
Yeah.
One of the things about Facebook is it's actually very difficult if you do get hacked to get your account back.
Oh, facts.
It's almost impossible. Like you can reach out to the team at Facebook and then they'll be like, oh, okay, like you really just lost it. I remember I had a family member who got their account hacked and all of a sudden they started seeing Al Qaeda and all this other kind of stuff on their Facebook, and it was like, wait a second, well, they didn't post that, and it was a business account. So that business, that like their whole business, all their contacts and pictures and all kinds of things were on that account, and then it got hacked. they weren't able to recover those types of things. And sometimes a lot of companies they use Facebook and YouTube and TikTok as storage for like their pictures or videos and stuff like that, like almost like unlimited storage.
Oh, facts.
So, to lose all of that information is heartbreaking for a lot of small businesses. Perfect example. I don't know if you remember, and I'll tell like a good story. I don't know if you've ever watched Watch Mojo on YouTube before. Have you ever
Yeah.
heard of them? Watch Mojo?
I did. I've done. I have.
Yeah, so they do like top tens for a whole bunch of different topics.
Everything. Oh,
Pretty much
yeah.
everything.
Everything.
And they have like thousands of videos and stuff like that over the years. A few years ago, they were hacked. Their account got hacked on YouTube, and all of their videos were replaced. Like all the titles and the thumbnails were replaced with it was something like spam. I can't remember exactly like what it said. It was like some sort of spam or whatever. And it was like hundreds of videos that were just changed, thumbnails and titles. And it was like all the same thumbnail and title. So they were trying to figure out like, oh, okay, how are they going to go through hundreds? And so I think at that point, like 1,000 different videos in order for them to like have the right thumbnail and title. They were able to, I guess, speak with YouTube and get their to get it back, but that would have been terrible if they wouldn't able to speak with the Google team, or if Google didn't keep backups for that company.
But and we just talked about that though. Part of shared responsibility is, since you're not controlling that, you need to figure out from a DR perspective. And I don't even do it. I'm just talking out the side of my mouth. We need to create a Python script to automatically back that stuff up, or back it up into a different YouTube account. So if something happened, you can bring them back, right? You depending on Facebook or YouTube, and that's really not part of their service that they guarantee you, right? Especially you as a business owner. And I'm right there with you, PBO. I need to figure out, because I think I got like 700 videos. Shout out to Chris. I didn't even know. He said, you got 700 videos. I don't have any of that backup. Like him, I'm relying on the graces of YouTube if something happened. But I'm like you, YouTube demonetized me for, and I still can't figure out a reason why. So I mean, so that's a whole nother thing. Let me answer.
Sorry.
Real quick. Let me answer this quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're right. Everybody, and I think Before the Billion says that everybody shouldn't jump into a boot camp, but a lot of people are pushing that boot camp as a way to make money. And I think people need to do a better job too, or the people selling a boot camp, which is not the job, assess your skills to see if you're ready to put you in some, like you're going to college. You need to take pre-algebra before you go to this calculus, right? So to give you a pre-class to figure out where you at. Shout out to Peter Investor. I was checking them out, getting my my business skill and my financial skills up. Go ahead, Before the Billions.
Yes, definitely. And salute to you as well, Peter Investor M.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up relating to storage and protection is I am, since I'm a data engineer and I've worked with Google Cloud primarily, Google Cloud storage is so much cheaper if you were like a small business to be able to store terabytes of data within Google Cloud storage, because it's a little bit more, it's better than doing it, it's cheaper than doing it within like Google Drive. But if you were to do it, Google Drive is going to cost you like hundreds of dollars for like a terabyte of data. But then if you do it through Google Cloud storage, you get 0.002 or something like that cents or whatever that you had to pay per gigabyte. So you can get so much storage if you're like a YouTuber and you set up some pipeline that can take your videos and put it into Google Cloud Storage and save it. You can archive it, and it's even cheaper than that, cheaper than standard storage.
Yeah, AWS got their
S3
cold, yeah, but they got some even S3. It's cold storage. I look at Arctica or something. But
right.
long story, it could take you 6 hours to get it back. But it's like you said, it's like a tenth of a penny for a terabyte. Right?
It's so cheap.
Yeah, and two is they got one where it's like it could take 12 hours, but man, you getting like a petabyte for a penny. It's something crazy. So I don't think they're actually putting it on physical tape. That's why it's taking so long. But like you said, just different rates of storage. So
right, and that's actually what I'm thinking about doing is if I want to do some backup, I'm going to try and leverage some of these cloud platforms. But of course, like how we're saying now, we have to be able to make sure that we have multi-factor authentication for these cloud platforms.
Yeah, because I'm gonna start doing some data pipeline stuff in the S3 bucket. Start doing my AWS videos with compliance, just kind of getting back into that. So it's funny. I went to an AWS event. It made me think of you. Finally went to an event, and they were talking about using their CDK to make pipelines and stuff that you can control and customize them. So he was actually talking about using their Boto, I think, which is Python for AWS. So you can write Python and kind of feed in there. What's up, Data Bunny? Glad you can join me. Nope, I'm not committing to that, Chris. Not every Wednesday. I'm gonna be around Wednesday, but I need to do better. Had my Yahoo account hacked years ago. I had to go through legal to get it back, but I succeeded. That congratulations, because most time they don't even care about that. Is the super chat? No, I got demonetized, Peter. So I appreciate you, Peter. Now my super chat, I got to work on getting back monetized. So I think me and Before the Billions had the same issue. Shout out to Anton Daniels. He get to do all these. Right? I thought I was doing the same thing he was doing. But no, shout out to him. No hate.
Right.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Before the Billion.
I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about what's one of the things that is slowing you down with YouTube content creation. And I told him the biggest thing that's slowing people down is copying others, because with Anton and really not just Anton, but a lot of these a lot of the content creators that we look at who have all these hundreds of thousands of subscribers, they have the hundreds of thousands of subscribers and doing reaction videos. We're growing to get to that point, and they can kind of pick on us a little bit more or a little bit easier because they're trying to copy what they're doing, but not doing our own thing. So that's why I enjoy this type of content where it's like, hey, I'm reviewing things that not everybody can just do.
No, facts. And shout out to you, and I need to do that. And shout out to Tech G. Is all of my videos, something like this, gonna be 2.5 hours long. I can go in there and slice out a whole bunch of videos. I'm just too lazy to do it. Shout out to Chris Whitlock. We were looking at some AI to help do that, but I don't know. So I just need to go in there because I could take this and at least get 10 more videos out, and just splice it out.
Yeah, so, Descript is what I heard was really good. I heard that from Citizen Lou.
Okay, I'll check that out. So I think I'm gonna start doing that, going through and at least pulling, because there's good questions, good. And I seen you did. I looked out like I think you cut out with something, me and you. I was like, oh, that's me talking Before the Billion. So I like when people cut that out. Let me read this quick one. Ticketmaster revealing their system infrastructure like a business exposing their report of compliance in PCI world. We're definitely going to be hacked. It's just a matter of time. I see a lot of people doing that. I don't know if it's the AWS is pumping them up and they get to, elevate themselves, which elevates their company, which elevates you as a person. Like if Before the Billion showed up with AWS talking about architecture, he's talking about his company and himself, his profile is gonna go up, right? So I can see why people do that. It's just I think we just got to get a balance to that. Peter gave you a salute Before the Billions. Go ahead, Before the Billions. Let you go with it if you want to chime in on something.
Yeah, I think that and I think I was looking at one of the comments. Yeah, talking about, so Chris was talking about how AWS is 0.003 cents per gigabyte. So, but yeah, I think that that was one of the projects I worked on for my old company where we were trying to save on money, save on costs.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you aren't a small business owner or a large, a large business, you can like take the initiative on a cost saving initiative for your organization to give you something like, you want to have an extra project that you want to bring up to your boss that could help them save some money, but then also give you more visibility and could
Yeah.
potentially lead to more opportunities for you. Then I think that would be a great project to work on, is archiving some old data that's no longer being used into cold storage.
Yeah. I think they had like 4 or 5 different levels of cold storage too. I need to go back
Yeah,
and look at that from AWS's perspective.
right. Because I know for Google, they have like the standard storage, they have nearline storage, they have cold line, and then they have archive.
Yeah.
And then it's like for nearline, you can access it. I think it was like quarterly or something like that. Cold line is, even longer, a longer period than that. Like you don't access it, but like once or twice a year. And then archive is like you never really reach out to get this data, but you have it just in case.
Yeah, for us, especially from a security GRC, is logs file because you as data engineer, man, y'all be creating a ton of logging, man. So
Yes.
just keeping, especially when you go on the Splunk and all that, man, that stuff be adding them quick. So anything, especially if it's longer than a year, we probably ain't gonna need it. Like sometime development, like, well, we need to see it to see some movement, but after a year, we need to put all that stuff in deep stoke. Because if we get hacked, it's gonna take them 24 hours to get here and get spun up. So while they're flying here, while Gabe, shout out to Gabe, Struggle Security, while he flying here, we can start getting those files access, and I could be running our playbook, stripping down the VMs, getting them ready, writing out the memory, writing out open files. So when those guys land, they can hit the ground running. Let me hit a couple of these real quick before the bit. Yep, she said her and her husband got her account back. Put the foot down. Yep, 3 cent. That's what she says. Double R, what she said, cold storage thingy. Yep, 24 hours. Yeah, I think that's the one I saw. I need to go back. Took Python. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what scripting language. AWS is at 3 or 4. So I'm trying to figure out what scripting language do I want to pick up. I've done a little Python, so I need to kind of figure out.
Can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah.
Something that you said earlier today was you were talking about all the people getting laid off, and there's a lot of competition right now in the market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I recently had an interview with a recruiter, and this is pretty interesting. They were like, "Oh, you have such great experience. You've done this, you've done that. You've used Python, you've used Java, you've used cloud platforms, and worked with databases." I was applying for a data engineering position, and then after they asked me for some references. I gave them some references. I was like, take as many as you need. I can give you 20, 30 of them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I go to a lot of events.
Yep.
And meet a lot of people over and over again who can vouch for me. But one of the things they said, like a few hours later, they were like, oh, well, hey, this other person, they said they really like them, and they have experience with developing APIs. And they have a little bit more experience with using Java. And then I was sitting here thinking, well, I have experience using it, but I have experience using Java, and I've used APIs before. I just, one of my tasks was never to develop APIs. If I were to try and develop an API, I can learn that over a weekend. You know what I mean?
We shout out to my guys, Chris Whitlock and those stuff. Mm-hmm. We were talking about trying to figure out labs to show that you can do those skills. Right. There's no doubt you can do them, but I think people want to see you now, right? There's so much competition. So if he said he can do it, even in a lab, you can say, well, I did it in the lab and these are the things I did. And two is you've been doing data engineering, so you know some things where you needed to build an API to make it easier for somebody to call. So you can build some stuff you can use later that you can say, this would have been the future state for this project to make it better. And I think we need to start labbing like that and start showing them and using your lab like experience.
Right. Because right now I'm working on a certification. I kept hearing people talking about Databricks. So I'm almost done. I'm about to take the test for Databricks, and it's from the actual company itself for data engineers. And I'm like, okay, well, if I have this, it ties directly into this role. So I'm thinking, okay, not only are you into like learning new things, right? Because not everybody is into learning and innovating. And some people go home and go watch Netflix and go to sleep.
Oh, 100%.
So, if you're somebody who goes out to events, goes to meet new people, learn new technologies, take certification tests, just lab, right? As another example, go to workshops and hackathons.
Yeah. I think the problem is people got greedy. Like you said, you're a great candidate, but there's so many people out this person just a little better than you, right? Or they doing some other stuff now. So they like, well, hell, we want somebody. You said you touched the API. This dude's developing and he out there. We're going to take him, right? So it's like, but dude, is he almost overqualified for the spot now, right? So
right.
Well, I think that's what's happening a lot. It's just so many people out there with great talent, especially since FANG is laying off 1,000 people, man. There's just so many people out there with just different skill sets.
Right. And also, one thing I'm running into, I know that that's one of the topics that you like to talk about as well, is ageism.
Oh, yeah. Facts. I'm going to do another video on that. Go ahead.
Right. This is a totally different recruiter, but I was talking to them and then they were saying, oh, yeah, you have 5 years of experience, as a data engineer. This person has 6 years of experience as a data engineer. If you want to be competitive, you need to go in for $2 less as a contractor than them. I was sitting here thinking, like, why would I go? What? No. So he's 1 year older than me, because that's the only difference, right? I got experience while I was in college, so I couldn't have any more experience than what I already have. So if I say, oh yeah, let me just take a pay cut to him because he's a year older, that doesn't mean he can do the job better.
No, and I think too is you got to work on. I was talking to this other guy is 5 years at a big company and you were at a small company. You got methods and methodologies and stuff. Your 5 years can be really 10 years depending on what you did and how you did and the velocity of your team. So I think even though it says 5 years, you got to sell it different. Like one of my younger homies, he worked for a big bank. So I was like, you got to sell the big bank, global company, policies and procedures, methodologies, moving billions of rows, every night. Most small companies can't do that. So even he got 10 years, he's been in a small pond. You got 5 years in a big ocean, right? So I think you need to sell that a little different depending on your background and what you're trying to sell. So your 5 years actually might be better than his 10.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was only one year difference.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So yeah. Two is, so like you said, are they looking for a certain technology? Are they looking for a certain time? Are they looking for? A lot of people talk about the big four consulting companies, right? We know FANG is looked at different. If you worked at AWS, right? I worked at DOD 10 years ago, and I always throw that out. Oh man, I worked at DOD, right? Because that's a big company. National company, government company, right? They got some of the best security. So I think it's how you sell it too. Right. Shout out to Chris. Hopefully I get to 2K soon. I thought I was over 2. What I got? I thought I was over 2K.
Yeah, you're over 2K subscribers. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to get to 3. I got demonetized. Hurt my feelings.
I could have sworn you were at 3.
No. I kind of when YouTube sent,
You're already at 3,200. 3,210.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to get to 4. I gotta go look. Once I got demonetized, YouTube hurt my feelings, man. I ain't even looking up where I had to regroup a little bit.
Are you talking about videos?
Oh, okay. I didn't think about that. I
Yeah.
was thinking about subs. Okay, yeah, it's video. I just be creating stuff, man. So I got to do one where Cleveland got hacked, man. Cleveland City shut down. So yeah, I'm gonna do that in the morning. Go ahead, you go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, there was
Oh, yeah.
another thing. Remember, there was a big push. They were saying that if you're a contractor, like, and you go to many different organizations, it's actually harder for you to get jobs. You know, like full-time positions, because they think of you as like a contractor. Oh, you kind of move around over and over again.
I don't think that's true. I don't
Right.
think that's true.
Well, I'm just saying, because like, not only just in tech, right? It's also
Yeah. But I think to me it depends on how you sell it. Because I was a contractor at DOD, but I worked for 4 companies. But since I went to DOD, I made it look like I worked for DOD because really I did. I didn't go to my contracting company. I had a DOD laptop. I drove to DOD. So even though I worked on many contracts, I put DOD. I put client DOD and all the companies I work for. I didn't even name them.
right, and that's what I did. I never really named the staffing agency.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to get at though is that, so that used to be like the, like what they would write articles about, they're saying moving from different companies, they want you to stay there longer, and they had a low viewpoint or low perspective on people who just move from company to company so frequently. But then I thought about it and I was like, wait a second, you want a catch-all type of person who's done all these different things and experience, and the only way that you can do that is if you are a contractor who goes from place to place and learns a whole bunch of different things. Like, yeah, you could, by yourself learn how to do all of these things, but sometimes some companies, they just want you to have worked with it in a production environment.
100%. Now, because and I tell people this a lot of times is, and this is, you can lab it, you can get pretty good at it. Ain't shit like getting a call at 3 a.m. in the morning for production saying it's down, right? That's a whole different level, right? That's why I don't do production now. I got PSTD, man. So when you tell people you got a production, that's a different level of deployment, right? Because when the whole system down, everybody's looking, oh, that's the module you created. Man, I almost had a stroke one time, man. So that's a different level when you put it in production and people depend on it. Let me read this real quick. Google's reading your stuff from training in the cloud. Mark Zuckerberg already told you they running your pictures. He owns them because you didn't pay him any money. He's running your pictures through Learning, man. Everybody's doing that. If you look at we call them DPA, data processing agreement. That's the agreement you click through. All of them now, so they can run your stuff. It's your stuff, but they can run it through their learning module, their large learning module. So now everybody's doing that upgrade, Jeff.
Oh, people, could I add on this?
Jump in. Yeah. Jump in.
There was a big pushback on this for Adobe. When you are using Adobe Creative Cloud, you have to, like, they changed their requirements where you can't, like, you have to, like, when you sign in to Creative Cloud, you have to agree to their requirements.
The terms and conditions. Yeah,
the terms and conditions. And then the new rule in their terms and conditions is that they can use your data to be able to train their AI. But they said there were so many people who were against it because they had NDAs that they wrote, that they signed. They can't just have their data just going out there to just anybody, because if you work for a big media company or a movie is coming out, you signed an NDA. You don't want that data to be trained on the model, because you can in fact get some of the trained data in some of the examples that people use, and that's how people found out that they were using artists. They were using artists' pictures or drawings in order to train their AI for generative AI.
So, AI starting to win art contests, which is crazy.
I can believe it, but it's one of those things. I think that Adobe, when they made that change, like you couldn't even, like if you clicked on Adobe Creative Cloud, you couldn't even click out of the app without signing up for their terms and conditions.
They're letting you know, they putting it right in your face. We taking your stuff, so you're gonna use this or not. So
Right.
we in town.
You couldn't even log out or turn off the app to even say no. I'm not even gonna sign this. So that was one of the things that people were talking about. They were like, "Hey, I have to agree. I can't even click X. I can
No,
just
man.
get it."
They'll be taking your stuff, man. They letting you know up front. But all I'm doing that, man, because I got the crazy thing is I got Adobe Cloud. I got the best tools in the planet. I just don't know how to use them. I need to take a couple Udemy classes to get a little better. Because I was letting it generate some thumbnails for me for their AI, and I still was sucking. Man, I got to work on my prompt skills. Let me answer this. We shout out to her. We were in the GRC study. Ageism. So I took 10 years off my resume, and my calls from recruiters start going up. so we can definitely. I'll probably do another ageism video. So a lot of people don't like where I go with it, but I'm me. Meaning, I understand ageism. I expect it at a certain level. Before the billions got all that energy, he can stay up 3 nights, drink Mountain Dew. PBO going to bed right after this, and he ain't gonna wake up till about 9. I'm gonna be late for work tomorrow. So I understand, but I do got a little more experience. So you got, and 2 is I probably a little more expensive than before the billion. So I understand I gotta bring value for the time I've worked, my experience, and what I expect to get paid. Right. So if I'm trying to save a little money and spend it up, and before the billion is gonna work, like he worked for Mark Zuckerberg 28 hours a day. I ain't doing that no more. So I understand what that is. So shout out to her.
Yes.
Go ahead and chime in if you want to chime in on anything.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite end. Like I'm in the point where I have some experience. Like it's interesting because there's three levels of it. Is when you're getting out of college and you have no experience and nobody wants to hire you. You have some experience, but it's not enough experience. And then when you get more experience, you hit like a sweet spot, and then it goes into, okay, now I need to take off some of this experience. I have too much.
So because this guy, he was something. He on YouTube, he's 55 and he got laid off, and he be he's depressed because I think he's having a hard time finding work. I'm blessed. I got a remote job, so I just get to do my thing. So I'm not super complaining. Like I said, when I got laid off, I found some pretty quick. So
yeah.
So
hey, PPO, I do have to drop off, but I appreciate you for having me up here.
I appreciate you for coming up.
It is always a pleasure to come up here, and I look forward to seeing your next live stream or video that you have coming out.
I appreciate it. Everybody go check out my man. They put his link in the chat. Go check out my man Before the Billions. Definitely doing some good work. We'll link up and do some that engineering pipeline security. We'll talk about that on a live. All right, buddy.
All right.
Have a great week, man. Talk to you later. Yeah, that is kind of crazy. Like I said, I did an ageism video, so I definitely know what you're talking about. I was, like I said, a little blessed where I found some remote pretty quick. So I will not be surprised at Google. Yep. Let's see. Hiding experience is one thing now. Hiding that I'm a woman. No, that's true. I could definitely see that. I can definitely see those. I can definitely see that. I appreciate you, Chris. I'll drop the link if anybody else want to come up. I'm going to just hang out a little longer, answer any more questions that's in there. Like I said, shout out to my man Before the Billion. So I hang out with not a lot of people, but definitely hang out with Before the Billions on internet. Definitely in that tech sphere. I need to get my man on here, Gabe. Definitely red team. So people I collab with sometimes. Shout out to Chris. Definitely putting in great work at the GRC. Shout out to the GRC family in the chat. So definitely gonna do some hands-on labs. So I need to get with Chris and start creating one. We talked about it, but let's see. But once again, getting back to the enterprise, let's show that last video. Let's see, 39. I'm working on 30. That was the notional security architecture right there. Then let's get back to my favorite one, which was the last one. She was correct. That should show IT risk probably underneath those, because most functions runs on top of IT. So just talking about risk from Ticketmaster. Once again, what would cause this event to happen? And ransomware would be the cause. What could you do to prevent it? We talked about MFA, Defender, Splunk, App Locker, blocking what you can install on there. What's the risk event? What would be the consequences if you got hacked? I said $5 billion of credit monitoring. We didn't even talk about fixing stuff, spinning up, reputational risk, getting sued by legal. And how could I minimize it? Cyber insurance, right? So that's talking about risk at enterprise level, then taking it down to an operational level. What is the operational level? That's putting MFA on from IT. That's making sure you got Splunk and you log in the proper events. We talked about what can you install and who can install. Stopping using whitelist from App Locker. Then from a legal perspective, how can you minimize that? Get your cyber insurance. And these things at the top, MFA, will make your cyber insurance cheaper because you have defense in depth showing your insurance company that you much harder to hack. So hopefully that would make your insurance smaller, because you're not a young kid driving 100 miles an hour, right? The older PBO got, the cheaper insurance got. Then once in a while you get so old and you can't drive, and your insurance start going back up, right? But how do you make your insurance cheaper? Installing defense in depth, which is MFA, MS Defender, Splunk for TPT technical and processes, and App Locker whitelisting what you can install. So if ransomware was trying to install itself, if it wasn't approved by App Locker, it wouldn't be able to be installed. So, shout out to Tam. Definitely go check her out. One of the people I collab with, talking a little bit about enterprise risk. I got to get with her and get my Kubernetes rocking. My Kubernetes is a little weak. Thanks for the stream so late. Being in Alaska makes it hard to watch. Oh, I guess I didn't know you were in Alaska, Double R. Shout out to Alaska. Hopefully it's daytime there. So next Wednesday, 8:30, then 161. I don't know. Did I do 161? I was going to do 30 next week, to be honest, Chris. Let me see. I think I did 171. I didn't do 161. I was going to do 30. Yep, no, you're right. Do 30, then 161. Upgrading Jeff. I'm in Eastern time zone. I'm in Indiana. Shout out to Tim. Definitely one of the day ones I'm always on. The Women in Linux, go check them out. I need to go work on my Kubernetes skills, especially from a GRC perspective, meaning checking out the hardening like we were doing when we were looking at the PCI infrastructure. Why is Gen X plus men not an issue, but Gen X is being a veteran / woman a problem? I thought you would get love from veteran. I think both of those inside the government would be good, like DOD-ish, Navy-ish, DFAS. Once again, I work for DFAS Financial, DOD Finance. I worked for DFAS for 11 years. I think that would be a plus, but that's an excellent question. You need to do a video on that, Ron. You should do a video on that. I'm gonna do one on ages. I guess we'll be out there. I guess Snowflake will out there. So I don't think it's Snowflakes. I think it's Ticketmaster. To be honest, I think up here, I think Snowflake was good. I think it was Ticketmaster's shared responsibility, and they failed at that. CMC 2.0 documents. I'm leaving that for you, Chris. I'm leaving that CMC world for you. We should make a public PBL track legit. That is true. I need to get a Calendly going. Shout out to Tam. I need to get my Calendly going on for that. Let's see. We need to collaborate. We can definitely do that. I'll be up for that. But yeah, I'll probably do another ageism. Like I said, I did one. I enjoyed it. So I'll probably do another. I did that probably 2 years ago. But once again, I appreciate everybody for joining me tonight. I hope everybody has a great hump day. 2 days left. I'm hurting. I am tired. I'm ready for the weekend. I don't know what's going on with me. Well, I've been walking. PBO got to lose a little weight, so I walked 3 miles, and it was about 88 degrees. I was like, oh my God. But no, I need to get that little sun on me. So once again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. We did a little bit of everything today. Shout out for B2B for coming up. Come and check us up at the GRC Study Hall. 7:30 Eastern Time every Wednesday. We usually in there chopping it up on different topics. Okay, I never thought about that. I was thinking instead of doing a GRC live, maybe it could be a real world task to collaborate on business. Let's go 10 miles a day. I went twice though. I don't know about 10, Tam. I went 2 in the morning, 3 this afternoon. I was hurting, Tam. I gotta build up to that, man. I'll be 57 this year. So I would shout out to me. I love yoga. I need to get back on my yoga team. But they do hot, and I'm like, sometimes the young instructors be losing control of the heat in the room. They don't be balancing out with the heat outside. But no, you're right. I need to start stretching a little bit. So that's definitely, I need to get that. My yoga doesn't look pretty though, but I do have a big boy Manduka mat. So I take my yoga seriously, Double R. So make that happen. But I'm out. I appreciate everybody for joining me. Let's see. That would be that. That's true. You need yoga to kind of calm you down. No, tell him you can join on there. Y'all could be like Kelsey and his wife from the Philadelphia Eagles. Y'all can have a YouTube channel. So, but no, once again, I appreciate everybody for joining me. Like I said, I'm hoping to go live a little more often. Definitely go check out Women in Linux. Let's see if I gave Tim a wrench. Tim, you got a wrench in there? Let me check. See, I know Tim. You can put your chat on there, Tim, if you want. Let me check you out before you cut out. Make sure you got a wrench on my. I'm sure you got a wrench. It'd help if I could log in. I am dragging today. Let's see if I can get to there. Let's see, Tim is in there. Let's see. Yeah, Tim, you can drop your channel if you want. You got a wrench, R got a wrench. So let's see. I'm in Eastern. Yeah, I'm gonna get that 30. Hopefully I'll get that 30. I'm hoping to do Tuesday, Chris, but we'll see. I appreciate everybody for joining me. Like I said, I think I'm wrapping it up. Let's see. I'm gonna try to go to studio. Once again, put a few more things in the chat. I'm about done for tonight. Just trying to get to my back end of my YouTube channel, which I'm struggling today, but I'm always struggle streaming. We're gonna see. I think I struggle streaming. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think there it is. Let's see. I appreciate everybody for joining me. Everybody have a nice night. I'm out of here. R squared. Double R squared yoga plus cyber. With the cyber. I'm out. Everybody have a nice night. If you need me, I need to check my email. I ain't checked my email forever. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. I just been really kind of working a little more, getting some things lined up. Once again, thanks everybody for joining me and supporting me. If you need anything, reach out. I see y'all on these YouTube streets. I'm out of here. Let's see.